Hello and welcome back to Classic Vinyl Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Justin, and I'm here today with my other host, Tyler.
I'm here.
And we have a special co-host this week, my son, Austin, once again.
Hello.
Welcome back, Austin. You've been with us before.
Yes, I have.
He was with us for the Love album review,
That's
Forever
right.
Changes.
Glad to be back.
We are glad to have you back.
So this week we're going to do something special. We've got a two-part episode of The Who and their great album Quadrophenia. And of course we're doing this for the 50th anniversary release of this album, and it was released on October 26th of 1973.
So you'll see this from time to time when we have a special anniversary. We will release an anniversary review. With this one, it's so significant that we had to split it up.
And of course we'll do episode 2 of the second vinyl will be released next week. Let me give a little bit of history on The Who first. They're, of course, an English rock band formed in London in 1964. They consist of Pete Townsend, who is the main composer, songwriter, and guitarist, Roger Daltrey, vocals, John Entwistle on bass, Keith Moon on drums. And they basically formed. Townsend met Entwistle while attending high school in London, so they knew each other fairly well. Entwistle actually joined a band named the Detours with Roger Daltrey, and then Townsend soon joined after that, and Moon joined shortly after that. They came up with the band name The Who, but they changed their name to the High Numbers for a little while, and then back to The Who. They liked how that looked on posters, and I think it's an excellent band name. So The Who's sold over 45 million records worldwide, which isn't too bad, honestly. So The Who arrived in the U.S. basically as the second wave of the British invasion. You know, you had 63, 64 when the Beatles and those guys all came over, and then The Who were more like 66, 67.
The reinforcements.
Exactly. And The Who is very well known for their live chaotic performances. Pete Townsend smashing his guitar, Keith Moon kicking over his drum set, blowing it up. And, you know, they really represented a new dangerous streak in rock and roll music.
Oh, Keith Moon treats his drums like a redheaded stepchild.
Oh, he certainly does. And, you know, Pete Townsend, well known for busting his guitar on stage. That actually all started as an accident. He threw his guitar up and it stuck in the ceiling and everybody cheered, fell down and broke. And he's like, okay, we've got something here.
All right.
You know, but he spent a lot of time putting guitars back together, especially in the early days when he couldn't afford guitars, but people expected to see him smashing them.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. And, you know, The Who didn't become superstars really commercially until the release of their first rock opera. Well, I should say their second rock opera, but their first rock opera album, which was Tommy. And that was in 1969, and especially was popular in the United States, is where it really hit and really kicked off their popularity. And it really propelled The Who into one of the biggest bands of the 1970s. I would say Led Zeppelin probably top as far as commercially, and The Who right there with them as rock and roll bands. They had a farewell tour in 1982. Of course, Keith Moon had died previous to that, but the band got back together in 89 and in the 90s up until the time of John Entwistle's death in 2002. And, you know, Townsend and Daltrey are still touring as The Who to this day. In fact, I've seen them a couple times live, you know, in their latest reincarnation of Daltrey and Townsend as old men. Austin, of course, has seen them with me once.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was a good concert, especially for 60-year-old, well, 70-year-olds, I should say at the time. Yeah, and out of their albums, you know, Tommy is their best-selling album of all time, with just over 20 million in album sales, and Who's Next, which I think is far superior to Tommy in a lot of ways, but it's had 4 million in album sales. They released 12 total studio albums, 10 of those studio albums from 1965 to 1982. They released one album in 2006 and one album in 2019. They released 16 live albums. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think The Who are the best live band ever. I mean, hands down. Live at Leeds is probably one of their most popular live albums. I shouldn't even say probably, it is. And if you haven't heard it, it's an amazing album. 27 compilation albums, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. When we did the Zombies episode not too long ago, and I think they had about the same amount of compilations off of 2 studio albums.
Yeah.
Kind of strange.
That was a little bit odd,
but they've also released 4 EPs and 4 soundtracks. Now, the first 2 studio albums were different in the US and UK, something we've talked about with the Beatles and things, how they had different US and different UK albums. Their first album, My Generation, in the UK was actually called The Who Sings My Generation in the US and had a little bit different song lineup. And their second album, a quick one in the UK, was called Happy Jack in the US. And then after that, they were all kind of standardized. So out of their albums, 10 albums in the top 10 in the UK and all of their albums in the top 20 in the UK. Who's Next hit number 1. Quadrophenia, Tommy, and Face Dances hit number 2. This is all in the UK. In the US, they had 9 albums in the top 10. Quadrophenia and Who Are You were number 2. Who's Next, Face Dances, and Tommy hit number 4 in the US. So,
wow,
pretty impressive for what their studio albums have done.
Absolutely.
They've released a total of 58 singles. 14 of those singles were top 10 in the UK. Only 2 of them reached number 2. They never had a number 1 single. I'm a Boy and My Generation. And 28 of those 58 singles were in the top 50. They actually even had less success on their singles in the US in a lot of ways because they had 20 of them hit the top 50. And I Can See for Miles was their top hit in the US as far as the singles charts, and it only hit number 9.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of crazy. But even when we talk about Led Zeppelin also being a huge band, they didn't have a number 1 hit in the US either. I think rock and roll, I mean, although it was more mainstream, it wasn't super mainstream, right? It wasn't the pop lovey-dovey stuff like the Beatles were releasing and things like that.
Well, this was a sound that was more hardcore, and it rang it rang a familiar chord with the Brits stronger than it did with the Yanks.
But even still, they didn't have a number 1 single in Britain, which is kind of crazy.
Well, that's just embarrassing because, what is wrong with you people on that side of the pond?
Well, and I'm not going to disguise what my feelings are of The Who because I've said it before. I think they are the best rock and roll band there is. I don't think there's 4 better players at what they do than here. I think Roger Daltrey is probably the best vocalist in rock and roll music. Pete Townsend, maybe not the best guitarist, but highly underrated and an excellent guitarist. But as far as his writing skills, amazing. John Entwistle, hands down the best bass player ever. And Keith Moon, in my opinion, hands down the best drummer ever.
See, and I'm just gauging them purely off of their looks. I don't care what they sound like at all. But Roger Daltrey is carrying this band on his shoulders.
Yeah, you could look at it one way, but other than Pete Townsend writes everything they've had, right?
Yeah, but Mr. Pete Townsend's not as easy on the eyes as Roger Daltrey. Roger Daltrey's pretty.
That's true.
I mean, have you seen him as they're older, though?
Yeah, and Roger Daltrey's still a pretty good-looking old man.
He has a lot more hair than Pete has.
Yeah, Pete Townsend, he's just got this big old honker of a nose, and you know what? That doesn't do well on the album cover.
Well, and I think with Pete, he cemented his legacy with Tommy. I mean, that was something that hadn't been done, a rock opera to that extent. And then you get Who's Next comes along, which is another, for me, top album.
Everybody in this band is just like oozing talent everywhere. They're all so loaded with talent.
Yeah.
But only one of them's really, really good looking.
Good point. They're definitely innovators behind some of the rock music's most daring experiments. I mean, you look at rock opera, you look at feedback, you look at power chords that basically Pete Townsend created, and to start it all off with the destroying of instruments and the explosions on stage and just being kind of early shock rock, and The Who, if you listen to their sounds, they have everything from heavy rock to really simple acoustic songs, and you mix in these rock operas and things, and there's a lot of thinking man's music too. And I am normally not a lyric guy, but you kind of have to be for some of this stuff.
Oh, I've noticed that very strongly. There's a lot of metaphor in this album.
Yeah, there definitely is. Do you guys want to get to the album review?
Think so.
And now it's time for the album review.
Okay, so today, on the first part of our episode, we're going to review side 1 and side 2 of the first vinyl of The Who, Quadrophenia. And Quadrophenia is the 6th studio album released by The Who. It was released on October 26th of 1973. It was released on Track and MCA Records. It was recorded at Olympic and Ramport Studios in London. I'm not sure what songs, but some of it was recorded in Ronnie Lane's mobile studio as well. And, this album was supposed to have the quadrophonic sound, and it just didn't come through that way. And I guess it's kind of a double meaning, too, because you got Jimmy that has the 4 personalities, and so that all goes together. But It's an interesting album. This was produced by Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp, who were the Who's managers. Along with Glyn Johns, he actually produced Is It In My Head and Love Reign Over Me, and Glyn Johns famously produced a lot of the Beatles stuff and many other artists, more than you can name. This is actually the Who's third rock opera, behind Tommy, of course, or after Tommy, I should say, and they had a mini rock opera called A Quick One While He's Away. It's about a 12-minute song, but it was their first. Yeah. It was their first mini opera. And this is actually, even though Pete Townsend is their main composer, this is the first album from The Who that Pete Townsend composed every song on this album.
Wow.
I did notice that.
So, in this album is basically about Jimmy. He's this working class mod. You know, he struggles with 4 different personalities, struggles with life. He's kind of involved in the mod versus the rockers thing. And a lot of it emanates from Pete Townsend's life and his writings and how he felt about things as a mod as well. And again, this album reached number 2 in both the U.S., UK, and Canadian chart. And it's kind of funny because there really wasn't a hit single or anything off this album, which really shows when we go back to talking what we were talking about on the singles. They weren't hitting heavy radio play, but the albums were selling. So, and Rolling Stone, for once again, what it's worth, ranks this as 267 on the top 500. Right there is the very reason you hear me say, I don't believe in Rolling Stone and their charts, because I am the hypocrite that gives that little tidbit on our episodes, but this album, in my opinion, is top 10. That's where I lay.
All right.
So this album sold almost 1.5 million copies. It's certified platinum in the U.S. by the RIAA. There was also a film version of this movie, just like there was Tommy, in 1979, and the movie was actually a commercial and critical success. Tyler and I were talking about that before. I don't think Tyler likes the movie very much.
I don't like them. Well, the movie's well made. I just hate the character.
No,
I think Tommy's a lot easier to watch, but mostly because, you know, Roger Daltrey is Tommy.
Well, and they use the real music and the real musicians in that, so it's a little bit different than you get the soundtrack to Quadrophenia. I think they should have used the band in that in a different manner.
Well, once again, I think that this movie could have really been helped by having the addition of Paul McCartney's granddad added to it.
Yeah, that'll always help any movie.
He makes any movie great. He's a troublemaker.
I agree.
But he's exceptionally clean.
It's very clean. So there's been several versions of Quadrophenia released over the years, and I own all of them for some reason. That comes in the completist nature of me with certain bands. You know, they've released them with several remixes, outtakes, demos, new songs, different things like that. And they're all good, but I really like sticking to the original recording of Quadrophenia. It's nice to sit down with it on vinyl and just listen to it how it was meant to be. Now, the cover on the album is kind of interesting. It was a photo by Graham Hughes, and it actually arose out of an argument between Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey. Pete Townsend, he doesn't like the cover they ended on, but Daltrey suggested that the members of The Who be on the cover no matter what. And so basically, you've kind of got a picture of the back of Jimmy. It's in black and white. He's on his GS scooter.
Yeah.
And in the mirrors, and you barely even notice. In fact, when I was showing Tyler the cover, he's like, oh, there they are. You barely notice The Who, the band members' faces in the little mirrors.
Yeah, so Pete Townsend, I mean, get over yourself. Your big old nose is not taking up the whole mirror that you get, which, you know, is like a centimeter square.
Good point.
If that, I mean, yeah, it's not that noticeable, Mr. Townsend.
And on the back, you have the scooter. It's kind of sunk in the sea.
Yeah.
Kind of tells, you know, a little bit foreboding of what's happened with Jimmy. And I don't know if that's him ditching it in the sea or if he drowned or who knows.
Well, these GS scooters, the style, like, had all these mirrors up and down both the front sides of it, all these rear view mirrors. So you can, you know, have a really good idea of who's trying to run you down on the road. Yeah,
I actually kind of like the cover just because it's simple, you know. And this is a Who album I discovered later after, you know, I was really into their hits. I was really into Who's Next and stuff like that. And I found Tommy, and then I found Quadrophenia, and it, in my opinion, blows Tommy out of the water.
I wonder what Pete Townsend wanted the cover to be, if not this, because this is a beautiful cover, really. I mean, artistic-wise, it's great. For what the album is, it's an excellent cover.
Yeah, it looks good. So do you guys want to get to side one?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Side one.
Okay, so the side one opens up with I Am the Sea. This is a song written by Pete Townsend, of course, and that's going to be the case on all of them. And I put on our notes that it's sang by Roger Daltrey, but it's really not, because you have little foreboding of songs to come. This is basically an overture of the album. And this is the shortest song on the album. It's basically an instrumental, and it's just over 2 minutes long. You know, it has the background lyrics that set the stage for the intense emotional journey that lies ahead in this album, if you really want to pay attention to lyrics, because like I said, I'm not a lyric guy, but this is one, if you want to follow the story, you do need to pay attention to the lyrics, but you don't even need to do that if you just want to hear the music. So, Austin, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like this song. I think it's a good start to the album, like you said, like a good overview of what's to come. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, Roger Daltrey hits some of the main, if not the titles to the songs, he hits a lot of the main choruses or lines from those songs that we're going to hear.
Yeah, you hear the real me in there, you hear Bellboy, you hear Love Reign Over Me, and it kind of introduces us to the sea theme too, because you hear the sea, you're at the beach, you know, you hear that.
Lots of ocean waves throughout this song.
Yeah, it's a good way to start the album, just as a little overture, and it's something they kind of done on Tommy as well, right? And it kicks straight into the second song, The Real Me, which of course again is written by Pete Townsend and sang by Roger Daltrey. And this is really kind of introducing you to Jimmy and his four personalities and the struggles he's having, you know, to deal with his four personalities and to find himself within this. What are your thoughts on this one, Austin?
I like this one. I think it's a good introduction to the instruments of the song, especially, you know, the drums and the vocals from Roger Daltrey. I think it's a good introduction and kind of also sets the track for what's to come.
Music-wise, this is a beautiful introduction to the band, like you say, Austin. Lyric-wise, this is like the whole subject of this is extremely psychological and about the angst of growing up and being a teenager and that struggle of trying to find out who you are. I mean, there's so much of self-discovery of trying to fit in and find your place in the world and find who your group is, styles you go with. But then you realize as you mature that you get so much more of like choosing what you're going to be. And that's part of being grown up is, you know, not trying to discover who you are so much as you're trying to consciously decide what you're going to be and who you are. What did you think about this one, Justin?
Well, I think it's a good introduction to Jimmy and the issues he's having, you know, and I don't know if they're issues that are like schizophrenic or if this is just general childhood malaise of some sort. I don't generally like horns in songs and things like that, but John Entwistle plays the French horn in this, and it's amazing. The bass is absolutely amazing in this. I mean, especially during the choruses, if you really pay attention to the bass line in the chorus. It's got that choppy Pete Townsend guitar that he plays really well. He's a messy guitar player. A lot of people compare him with Jimmy Page in a lot of ways. Jimmy Page is very, very clean playing, and he gets that from being a studio musician. Pete Townsend is very rough and choppy playing, which I actually quite enjoy. I wrote this note, crazy bitch-ass drumming. Because the drumming in this whole damn album, and not just this album, The Who in general, you know, where a normal drummer would do a tiny bit of a fill, you get quadruple that. And
Quadrophenia.
I don't know, and people will argue with me, and send us in your emails if you want to argue with me about him being the best drummer of all time, but he's absolutely amazing. He does it. We talked about this while we were listening to it. He does it in a way without interrupting the songs too. It's almost like a lead instrument in some cases, you know, and he does it so well. And you're going to hear me repeat this over and over throughout this. I mean, he's just an amazing drummer. Yeah. John Entwistle, the best bass player of all time. People well know, if you've listened to The Who, that he uses that as a main instrument too. You know, a lot of times Pete's playing off that. So it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Each of these band members brings it, and they're all masters of their craft.
Yeah, completely. So that moves us on to Quadrophenia, song 3, which is the first of 2 instrumentals on this album, or kind of 3 if you want to consider the first one an instrumental. But this is a straight instrumental. It's a little over 6 minutes long. Of course, this was written by Pete Townsend. What are your thoughts on this one, Austin?
I like this one as well. I think it's kind of, I think it's almost like a second overture. an intro to the album, kind of just a condensed version of the album, kind of setting the tracks still.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of this said with instruments. This is the thing about these instrumental songs, is I'm so impressed by how well they get a message across using just instruments, no vocals. It really comes through. These guys they're phenomenal. Each of these guys are so good. So what do you think about this this instrumental Quadrophenia?
Kind of like Austin said, I think it's definitely a second overture type of thing that introduces us to other songs. It foreshadows Love Reign Over Me. It's got great guitar in it, great drumming once again. I mean, what can you say about that? This song reminds me of Tommy a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just the way the song's put together, and the bass is great in it again, and Pete's playing the synthesizer in this, and I really like the way it's used, and I'm not a huge synthesizer fan, but The Who were one of the first bands to really implement it, and I like the way they do because it's not overpowering or leading the song. It's just used to kind of do little markers in there, and I think it sounds really well.
Yeah, the way that you say that it harkens back to Tommy, but this song particularly, the way that they use that synthesizer, this is more, I think, ahead of its time. This is a sound that you hear very much in the late 70s to the 80s. Very popular sound that this synthesizer brings to it that you don't really hear in other sounds. And this is in 73. I mean, this is way ahead of its time.
Well, yeah, and what's good about it, too, is that it's used kind of lightly. It doesn't overpower everything.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. So that moves us on to song 4, Cut My Hair, written and sang by Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey together. It explores the theme of fitting in and, identifying with societal expectations. It's kind of the dilemma Jimmy faces between wanting to be accepted by his peers and staying true to himself, all at the same time as being seen as an outcast, which is kind of childhood in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
His talks about his fashion choices he makes to fit in and trying to make his parents happy at the same time, although his mother discovers this box of blues while cleaning his room. And a lot of people say that refers to drugs she found or records or something like that. It's not really clear, but take it for what it is. What are your thoughts on Cut My Hair, Austin?
Again, I think it's a good one. The one thing that I really like about it is how well their vocals work together, both Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey. And I think it's an easy one to follow lyrically. I think it's, even if you don't follow lyrics a lot, it's still very easy to understand, and it tells a very great story.
That's a good thing about this album, though, too, is if you don't follow lyrics, you can still follow the music.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of fun about it, and you can kind of do your own looking into it. What are your thoughts on this one, Tyler?
I think that's one of the things that makes the writing of this album so top notch is that these guys are all masters of their craft, and the music is telling the same story that the lyrics are. So you're absolutely right, Austin. You don't have to be able to understand what they're saying or be a lyric person in order to get what this music is about. And this really captures that angst of growing up and, trying to fit in and, but at the same time, trying to be true to yourself. And how do you be true to yourself if you don't really know who you are yet? But and part of that is also experimenting with different things and, doing the heavy drugs. I mean, we all have done that, right? No, I have been told several times, don't ever do drugs. You're dangerous enough as you are.
There's certain people that need to do drugs, and there's certain people that need to quit doing drugs.
Yeah, and I've been told I should never even try it.
I think it is a very relatable song, though. I think that's another good way to put it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very relatable. What are your thoughts about this one, Justin?
I always look a little further into the music on these things, but this is definitely an album I pay attention to the lyrics. It's got a really good soft guitar intro with Pete Townsend's vocals, which I really like. I really like the imagery in this. It's got, once again, the bass is absolutely amazing, top notch. The drumming's crazy and top notch. I mean, every single song, I like the way they use the piano in this. I'm not a huge piano fan, but this is kind of what I'm talking about when they use it with other instruments on top and don't necessarily feature it. I really like the Pete Townsend back to the Daltrey vocal, the way it kind of flips back and forth. It speeds up in the pre-chorus and myself to death to fit in Pete. And he also kind of ends where he says, a fried egg makes me sick first thing in the morning. And I've always I just really like the imagery of the lyrics in this song. I like the music. It's almost like 3 songs with Daltrey vocals and then Townsend vocals. And I like how that plays off of each other.
It's amazing the way that they use all of this to tell that same story. Because, like, even the instruments, the piano is a very traditional instrument, very old person type instrument, right? So when you bring that into a rock and roll song that's about a young man trying to fit in with his peers in a rising generation that the previous generation obviously doesn't approve of, because the previous generation has never approved of the rising generation. He's also trying to have the approval of that old generation. So they bring in that piano and try to make that fit in as well as part of the whole way that this whole song works. I mean, this album is a beautiful work of art, I think.
Yeah. Each song sets up each section really well.
For sure.
So that moves us on to song number 5, the last song on side 1, The Punk and the Godfather, once again written by Pete Townsend, sang by Daltrey, but Pete Townsend sings during the bridge. It's basically about Jimmy going to see a band play, but he's really disappointed when he learns the band is basically just a bunch of phonies. They don't live up to what they, what they're singing about and what they say they believe in. Pete Townsend wrote this song about when he used to be a mod or a so-called punk, right? Now he is the so-called Godfather, right? The rock star.
Yeah.
And so he's made that change, and it's kind of playing off of that as, sometimes when you become famous, then sometimes you give up your ideals for that. What are your thoughts, Austin, on The Punk and the Godfather?
I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is the guitar and the bass on this. I think they almost sing to each other. It's like they're having a conversation. They both take turns leading, and I think it sounds fantastic. What about you, Tyler? What do you think?
Oh, this is a beautiful song. Saying that it's a beautiful song for being a lyric guy, the instruments really drown out the lyrics, make it hard to understand sometimes. And yet I don't feel lost. And that's amazing. I mean, this is the song where I really found that Keith Moon is treating his drum set like a redheaded stepchild. He's just beating the crap out of it. I love Keith Moon. The guy plays the drums. He doesn't just, drum along to keep time. He plays the crap out of that.
And that's
drum
one
set.
thing, famously that Pete Townsend hated about Keith Moon was most drummers do keep the time and the beat. And you can hear from Keith Moon's drumming that it's pretty tough to get any kind of timing off that because there's no just simple beat laid down. I mean, he's filling every little open void with more than any drummer fills those open voids with.
There was this little interlude that they slowed down the tempo. It seems like they did that in order to make Keith Moon ease up on the drums. But then as soon as they're done with that interlude, then he's right back at it again, just beating the crap out of it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, you kind of get the feeling like there's just no stopping him.
Yeah. He's going to beat those drums.
He's going to do it.
And what were your thoughts about The Punk and the Godfather?
I kind of echo what Austin said. I love the guitar in this song, especially the intro, and it kicks into bass too, and they do play really well together, especially in the pre-chorus. Right before the chorus, the guitar and the bass sound excellent. Once again, the drumming is amazing in this thing. I like how they kind of have that computerish, it almost sounds like synth or something where they're saying my generation, which kind of harkens back to, one of the Who's first songs that made them popular. So this is a good song. I love everything about this one as well. So that finishes out side 1 of the 4 sides we're going to be covering. Do you guys want to get to side 2?
Let's do it.
Side 2.
Okay, so side 2 opens up with I'm One, written and sang by Pete Townsend. And this is about Jimmy, the protagonist, and his 4 personalities and how they're a struggle, but he's basically in denial of this. Even though he's aware of it, he's in denial of it. He's trying to convince himself that he's okay and that he has control over everything, but he doesn't, and he never will, and I think he knows that. Pete Townsend wrote this once again about his early mod beginnings, how he started as a modster, his attempting to fit in with everyone. So that's kind of what this is about. What are your thoughts about I'm One, Austin?
I think it's a total 360 from the final song on side 1, The Punk and the Godfather, but it's a good contrast. I think it really sets the tone for this side as well and just more of what's to come. And I don't think you can beat Pete Townshend's vocals either.
No, they're
amazing.
they're good.
It's awesome in this song. What about you, Tyler? What do you think?
I was shocked to hear the acoustic guitar. For being such a heavy electric band, to have that classic acoustic guitar come out. And you're right, Austin, this comes across as more insecure and introspective, whereas the last one was more upset with the phonies on the outside. This song is more upset about the phonies on the inside. That being said, trying to fit in when you have mental illness, it's hard to fit in anyway, but when you have like some sort of mental illness, like split personalities or multiple personalities, and you're trying really hard to hide that so that you'll fit in and not be the odd one out, boy, it's so difficult. And yet, boy, this song really captures that. What do you think, Justin?
It's really hard for me to name my favorite songs on this album because they all kind of fit together. This is all one piece together, but
Yeah.
I'm One is definitely one of my favorite songs. And Pete does play a mean acoustic guitar, and you do hear that throughout his career, and he does an excellent job at it. And this is a song that the Pete Townsend vocals fits perfect. I've always loved this song. I love when the song, it's really slow at first with that acoustic, but then it really speeds up and the bass and drums kick in amazingly so. What can I say about that? A perfect song for Pete Townsend's vocals. It's got great imagery in the lyrics, ill-fitting clothes, and I blend in the crowd, fingers too clumsy, voice too loud. It's like he knows that, he's got his issues and he's not fitting in, but he's doing his best to do that. I mean, that's the struggles of any young man or woman, right? To fit in with everyone. But then sometimes, it seems like nowadays that's not as big of an issue. Now it's almost like you do something to not fit in to fit in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You do something completely crazy and that's the way you fit in now.
Yeah.
Whereas I think during these times it wasn't like that. You fit in with one group or the other, right?
Yeah. There's one of the characteristics of adolescence in your maturing process is what's called the invisible audience. And so, he's sitting there talking about being all clumsy and everything and, speaking too loud. He's noticing this and thinking, oh, everybody else is, looking at me. Everybody else is noticing how clumsy I am and how loud I am too. But really, at some point when you grow out of this, you become an adult, you realize that everybody else is exactly the same as you are, and you're not noticing all these flaws and the clumsiness of everybody else around you. And you think, well, if I'm not noticing that about them, maybe they're not noticing that about me. And all of a sudden that invisible audience disappears.
So that moves us on to the next song, The Dirty Jobs, written by Pete Townsend, sang by Daltrey again. It's about Jimmy being frightened by his possible future and what things lie in his path. Exploring the concept of the individuals, how they find themselves trapped in a mundane, unfulfilling job, the toll it takes on them. Everybody knows this when you're stuck in a job that's just not leading anywhere, and what's life worth? Shouldn't I be doing something I love? And it's kind of the thing that plays off. This song speaks to the dehumanizing nature of some occupations that people find themselves in.
The help.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on The Dirty Jobs, Austin?
It's very interesting that even 50 years later, it's still very much applicable and relatable, even from across the ocean here in the U.S. But I think it's very interesting with the current events that are going on, people going on strike, just people not being happy with wages and stuff. I think it's very interesting that it's kind of relating to that.
Yeah, we haven't come very far, have we?
No.
Yeah, this song really sounds like a call for revolution or strike. The unions are coming, sort of thing. But this is really, there's some lines in there. He's like, if you let the man screw you, then it's all on you. You're the one who's going to suffer, sort of thing. You decide how poorly you're going to allow others to treat you, including your superiors, right? And what you won't put up, because they need your labor as well. What do you think, Justin?
Well, I kind of look at this two ways because, as being a manager of a lot of people in the current times, some people just don't simply want to work and they hate their job because it's work. So you got to look at that in two ways because a lot of times you got to work your ass off to get somewhere and prove a point at the same time. So that there is two sides to this story. But I get it because there are people that are in dead-end jobs. They've been there for years and it's really what takes over their lives. For Jimmy, having split personalities and having all these issues already, this isn't good for him, right?
No.
But as far as the the song, the drumming is just plain crazy in this one again. Entwistle plays the French horn, which I'm not a French horn fan in any manner, but the way the Who use alternate instruments is perfect because they just give you little doses of them and they fit in perfect. And it's got decent bass, especially at the end of this song. If you really pay attention to the ending of the song, the bass is really strong in this one. So another good song, another piece to the story. So that moves us on to Helpless Dancer, which this is the first of 4 theme songs explaining the different sides of Jimmy's personality. This one's Roger's theme, of course, written by Pete Townsend and sang by Daltrey. And Roger's theme is describing his tough guy personality, Jimmy's tough guy personality, which Roger kind of was the tough guy of the group. He was known to get into fights and things like that, and he was certainly the tough guy of the Who. The Helpless Dancer, the tough guy helpless dancer, Roger Daltrey. It's all about prejudice and social differences within society and the power that different people have over you. One cool thing about this song, too, if you know The Who, right at the end, it does include the intro to the song, The Kids Are All Right. What are your thoughts about Helpless Dancer, Austin?
It's another great song. I think the intro to The Kids Are All Right at the end is really cool, kind of little tidbit or little feature. Overall, though, I think it's a great song. I think it's cool that they're doing the themed things. Each of them have the 4 themes, and there's 4 different songs that explain that, and I think it's a cool way to start that out. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I really agree with you there, Austin, that these guys are laying out these themes, and they're doing it so well, and really capturing this whole concept. The title of the song, Helpless Dancer, it's to juxtapose it with this tough guy theme. I mean, that's really, it's like... the people that you see driving the big old muscle trucks down the road, right? Stacked pickup trucks, they're right in your tail because they're tough. But their truck gets hit by a train, and all of a sudden they're a very helpless dancer.
Good point.
So, yeah, I mean, it kind of harkens back to this whole thing of we're all very fragile mortals. We like to be tough, and we can be scrappy, and we can, go and push people around that we can. Society as a whole will crush us like a worm. We are so helpless. I love that yelling at the end, "You stop dancing." What do you think about this song, Justin?
This song is kind of interesting. It actually starts with the horn and piano, which is different from the rest of their songs. Mm-hmm. And if you'll notice the vocal, especially if you're listening on headphones, the vocal pans from left to right, and it keeps doing that. It's kind of cool when you're listening to the vinyl or listening on a sound system. On headphones, it's almost kind of annoying, mm-hmm. just because I don't like that heavy panning, but it doesn't do it very much, so it's okay,
But it's very politically incorrect.
Correct. Yeah. And it's got good acoustic guitar in this, especially when it kicks in. And speaking of politically incorrect, surprised you didn't mention anything about, disappear like the lesbian and queers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That has that little tidbit in it, which I don't know if that'd make it in today's woke world.
No, I think these guys would get canceled.
Definitely this song probably would. Mm-hmm. And you don't even know if that's against them or not. I think it's just saying that, I don't know what it's referring to, but
well, that's kind of the funny thing is back then you had to just take it. You had to put up with that older generation being racist and being, phobic or whatever.
Yeah.
But nowadays we've turned the tables on them. So no, we cancel people that are racist and homophobic. Or
you just wish there was some happy in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next song is It In My Head? Another song, of course, written by Pete Townsend, sang by Roger Daltrey, but during the chorus, John Entwistle sings, part where he actually says, "Is it in my head?" That's John Entwistle. Oh. And this is about Jimmy seeing, a man without a problem, quote unquote, and wonders how this is possible when the world has so many problems. It does really address Jimmy's ongoing mental health issues that he's having, that his head is empty, yet every word he says turns out a sentence, which that's part of the lyrics. It's kind of interesting looking into Jimmy, wondering, do other people have the same problems I'm having, or am I making this all up? What are your thoughts of Is It In My Head, Austin?
Not being very lyrical, I still think it's very easy to follow, and tells a story very well, just like this whole album has this far. And I also do enjoy getting a nice little surprise of Entwistle in the chorus. That's a nice little surprise. What about you, Tyler? What do you think?
Entwistle, usually I think I recognize his voice. This time I didn't, because he just blended with Daltrey.
And see, I always thought Entwistle, especially in this, sounded more like Pete Townsend.
I'm just kind of blown away by this song. I'm going extremely heavily psychological on this.
No, that's not like you at all.
I know. This person, Jimmy, is perceiving a man without a problem. Well, it's not possible. Everybody has problems. It's just that this man deals with his problems in a different way and carries himself in a way to hide those problems so that he's not perceived as having problems.
Yeah, but is Jimmy, I mean, this is all in his head anyways. Are all these problems Jimmy's having, is he showing them to the world? You know, I mean, that's the other question.
Exactly. So that's the other side of this conversation is this guy exactly the same as Jimmy? Does this guy have these problems? Or is Jimmy just a failure at hiding those problems or dealing with them the way this guy does? And good questions to think about, to see how much of this is just normal human behavior and how much of this is mental illness. Because I think there's a combination of both. What are your thoughts about this song?
Well, like Austin said, it's hard to miss the lyrics and what they're talking about. I mean, if you sit down and listen to it at all, it's pretty apparent of what's going on. Musically, it starts out with piano and acoustic guitar, which I really like on this. This song probably has the most subdued drumming on the album, but also at the same time, Keith Moon can't help himself. So it's not that subdued. But compared to others so far, it's got good little guitar licks that really accentuate the song. And I really like the way Pete Townsend does it. I really lean on that lyric. I see a man without a problem, because that's what Jimmy is perceiving as a man without a problem, and maybe that man looks at Jimmy and sees another man without a problem. That's kind of what it's all about, right? And that's kind of the thing. Is it in my head? So I think he's noticing that, are these mental issues, am I making them up, or are they real? Even if you make them up, they're real if they feel real. So that moves us to the next song, I've Had Enough, another song written by Pete Townsend. This one's sang by both Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend. And this song really makes it sound like it's an argument between all of Jimmy's 4 different personalities, and it basically ends in his contemplation of suicide. He does finally take a positive step by deciding he's going to go to Brighton and the sea and search for his so-called spiritual unity, whatever that may be. I really like the lyrics in it. Like, I did make this one note. You were under the impression that when you were walking forward, you'd end up further onward, but things aren't quite that simple. And so that's also the pessimistic view of it, right? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on I've Had Enough, Austin?
I enjoy Daltrey and Pete Townsend singing together again. I'll always love songs where they're singing together, but I think this one tells a great story lyrically once again, just like all these songs. I think the aspect of him kind of having a conversation with his 4 different personalities, like you mentioned, is a very cool aspect of it. And I like this song. It's also a cool mix of songs, I feel like some of these other songs on here as well. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, this song, the keyboard really paints a picture of the song for me, because this really is this inner struggle, this inner battle, and the way that they sing, it's almost like a ballad, this little interlude where they take on kind of a folk song type thing, sort of thing you just sing playing an acoustic guitar sitting around a campfire. This song is a showdown in spite of that. I like how that comes through. What were your thoughts about this one, Justin?
I really like this. And once again, Austin kind of hit it on the head. What I was going to say, I really like when Daltrey and Townsend share vocals, because it really splits the song down, and it really makes, especially when you look at what the song is kind of supposed to be about, is him fighting his own personalities. You could almost had all 4 people singing on this, and would have made really good. This song does kick in with a drum intro, and then a little electric guitar comes after that. It's got good galloping bass line in it that I really like. I think the thing that stands out on this one is the Pete Townsend vocal. And my God, the drums, once again, are absolutely amazing in this song. The fills are just crazy. I don't know how the guy keeps up. I love the different pieces of this song. I really do like that Pete Townsend vocal. You know, when he gets in that, I ride a GS scooter with my haircut neat. I really like that portion of the song. And then at the end, it really harkens and kind of forewarns you of love, rain or me. You hear that at the end. And you get a lot of that in this album where the songs are either foreshadowing songs or hearkening back to them or whatever. And it's kind of neat the way it all plays together. And it's almost like you're in Jimmy's head the whole time and what he's thinking and, you know, looking forward to optimistically, what things he's pessimistic about and what things he's struggling with, right?
And I love that message of the lyric where he says that, you know, you were under the impression that you were walking forward, and or that when you're walking forward, you'd end up further forward, but it's really not that simple. You're not just on stable ground. You're on a treadmill. So unless you're walking faster forward than the treadmill's trying to drag you backward, you're losing ground. And it won't make sense to you because, well, you're walking forward. You're just not walking fast enough forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we're going to do this week is something different. This was just too much album for 1 week's episode, so we're splitting this up into 2 weeks' episodes. Next week, we'll be back to review the second vinyl record, Side 1 and Side 2, or as it's called, Side 3 and Side 4. We will, at that time, give you our album ratings, as well as our winners and losers. But in the meantime,
you can reach out to us and send us an email at classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Until next time, see you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.